And welcome to Understanding Photography with Kim Ayres, episode 286. Today we're talking about signs, not ill omens, portents and superstitions, but physical, actual, tangible signs and how to photograph them. So if you happen to be watching live, leave a comment. Let me know where you are. Let me know what the weather's doing and we can make a start. Yes, and welcome to Understanding Photography with Kim Ayres, episode 286. Signs is the theme of this week. Oh, yes, this week, this podcast, and I suppose the theme of this month in some ways, because I'll be setting a challenge on it later. If you happen to be watching live here on YouTube, you can join in the chat over it. There should be a live chat somewhere on your screen bit. Let me know you're here. Just tell me your name if you don't know it already. Let me know where you're from, all the usual kind of bits and pieces. If you're not watching live, but you're watching the recording, you can still leave comments down below in the usual comment section. It's just I obviously won't be able to respond to you live. If you make a comment on anything in the actual podcast, please do make a reference to what bit you're talking to, because there isn't a timestamp, so I won't know exactly what point you're referring to. Has happened in the past. I see we've got a couple of people in already, so let's do a little bit of quick hello. So Gunilla joins us from Ireland and says, nice weather here today. I'm a passenger in a car right now, but I can look at the podcast on my phone. Yes, don't drive and podcast at the same time. Susan says, hi from a bright and sunny Kirkcudbright. It's very windy though. Hope you're travelling somewhere nice, Gunilla. And yes, here in Castle Douglas, which is just up the road from Kirkcudbright, it is currently sunny. There's a kind of little bit of, there's a bite in that wind, I think, though. April says, greetings from a sunny Long Island, New York. John joins us, where says, nice weather here in mid-Ohio. Alan's joined us again from Bridlington and says it's very changeable there in Yorkshire. Janet says, hi from a chilly, damp Mississauga in Canada. And Gunilla says she's actually on her way from the countryside to town. Oh, and VG has joined us from Chennai in India and says, good evening, friends. It is one of those things that always gets me about the time difference. There's some of those over in the likes of John and what have you will be, then Janet will be probably just, either eating breakfast or have not long had it. Whereas VG is now in the evening, quite possibly finished having a evening meal. So yes, that kind of time difference all happening. Whereas here it's mid-afternoon in the UK. So where are we at then? So today then we are talking about the notion of signs. I say not portents, not ill omens, superstitious kind of things, but physical, tangible signs. So this comes about from last month. The winner of the Smug Points Challenge accumulation was Anton. And Anton, we had a little bit of back and forth, a little bit of chat about what kind of things he might like to talk about. And he talked about that notion of signs. And it is one of these that you will find quite often crops up as a topic in some of the online photo challenge sites like PhotoCrowd or Guru Shots, Viewbug, that kind of thing. So you'll get the idea of signs. Now, we are surrounded by signs, but this isn't about product photography. There's a kind of an important aspect of how you go about photographing signs. So this is what we're really going to be talking about. Little different ways you can interpret it, different ways you can look at how you would go about photographing it. And then at the end of this, I will be setting a challenge. So if you don't have a chance to listen to it all, or you want to listen back to it again, of course, all these podcasts are recorded. So episode 286, there are 285 previous ones, all available here on this channel. So there's a quick point. Actually, if you have been watching that right now, whether live or recorded, if you can hit like, that's always useful. I'm assuming you like it, of course, but it is useful for getting the algorithms going. And if you click like while we are going out live, I think it kind of tends to show it into a few more people's live streams as well. While they're on, a little bit comes up now showing live into anybody who's already shown an interest in photography. So we've gained a few new regulars through that. So it's always nice to kind of grow our little community. And of course, if you haven't done so already, subscribe is another one. What do we have? Oh, Janet said, 10 a.m. start here for me, and that's in Canada. Often works well if I've been out shooting before sunrise. April also says 10 a.m. in New York. and it's 7:30 in the evening in Chennai for VG. Right, so yes, this notion then of yes, let me just take that off for the moment. And where are we? Yes, so this notion then of signs. And so what counts as a sign? It's one of those things where you kind of think you've got a basic idea and a definition of what signs are, until you start looking into it. And Anton said signs as a possible, option for doing a podcast about. And I thought, yeah, that's fairly easy. You're going to take a couple of photos of a couple of street signs, road signs, maybe house signs, maybe shop sign. And then what becomes the definition of a sign starts to grow and expand. And a huge part of putting together this podcast for you today has been putting together the podcast for today. It's not just been a case of grab a couple of photos out of my existing folders. I've been out there with my phone trying to take a few more photos and what have you, but also trying to work out the story arc, how I can take you through different ways of looking at what signs are and ways of making sense of how, if you're wanting to take this subject and go in for these online competitions, how you can make a photo that's going to be worthwhile. John says it's 10 a.m. in Ohio, but a 12-hour drive to Long Island. 1 hour difference as the sun goes, 12 hours in as the car flies, as the car drives. Right. Okay. So let's get a little kind of working definition of sign. So basically, what I've managed to grab from Google. A sign is any physical object, device or visual mark designed to convey information, warnings or instructions to an audience. They serve to identify locations, direct traffic, promote business, communicate risks through text, symbols or colours. So signs are basically everywhere. And as soon as you start stepping outside the door, you suddenly realise just how many there are. There's thousands of them. So, just let's, okay, but basically, what I kind of came to realise is that you can kind of categorise 4 different kinds of signs. There are signs that tell you are here. This is the place to be. So, I'll tell you what, let's do a little bit of, little screen tidying up here and I'll show you what I'm talking about. So I'll do that and then that and then that. And so, yes, as an example, so shop signs, here, this is the place, this is the cafe. If you're looking for a cafe, you've arrived. If you're looking for this particular cafe, you have arrived, except for the fact at the point that I took this photo, they were closed. Never mind, doesn't matter. The point is that the whole shop front becomes the sign. So there's the signs that say, this is where you are. Then there's the signs which say, this is where you want to go. So directional signs, arrows, path this way, path that way. This path takes you to the town centre. That path takes you on to Thrieve Estate. Then there are the signs which tell you what you should be doing. So, slightly nostalgic one here from a few years ago. COVID-19, hand sanitising point. Remember them when they were absolutely everywhere? Every building you go into, got to sanitise your hands first. Okay, so this is a sign to say, do this. And then there are the signs that say, don't do this, which essentially serve as warnings. So on these little kind of power substations, I always found this one sort of slightly interesting. Danger of death. Not danger of electrocution or it's danger of death. It's bam, there you go. Let's not mess around. Don't come in here. It's a warning sign. Stay away. And what you tend to find is the vast majority of signs fall into this sort of category. There's this is where you are. This is where you want to go. This is what you should be doing. This is what you shouldn't be doing. So when we come then to photographing signs, there's a couple of different ways we can go about it. And primarily, there's the notion of, is the sign itself maybe interesting? Or is the sign, the context of the sign interesting? Okay, so, or is it a mix of both? So, okay, let's just do another quick, what about, how I? Right. So I'm sort of slight apologies up front. This podcast has kind of come down to the wire a little bit, so slightly less rehearsed for it. Okay, actually, what do they say? Never explain, never apologise. I don't know. I can't help. I've got to apologise a little bit. But let's just move on. Examples, right? So just literally up the road there, pointing the camera down the way, you immediately at the edge of Castle, as you're coming into Castle Douglas here, we're not even at the edge, we're kind of moving at the top of the high street. Here's a bunch of signs. Over on the left, we have symbols. The P meaning parking, the I meaning information, WC meaning toilet, and figure in a wheelchair meaning disabled access. Now, whether that's disabled access to the WC, the parking, the information, or all three, it's not totally sure. And then, of course, there's an arrow on it saying it's off to the left as well. Then we've got a 20. That's miles per hour, not kilometres per hour. That's miles per hour. That's the new speed limit. It used to be 30, but just in the last few weeks, Scotland has been rolling out 20-mile-an-hour speed limits in towns where it used to be 30. Then we've got over here a patrol thing, a school crossing. So on school days, Harry, the lollipop man, is out there each morning and each mid-afternoon in order to help the kids cross this. Now, at the moment, it's an empty street, but it can sometimes get quite busy. So the little lights start flashing, warn people, he steps out, stops me, allows the kids to cross. So just in this little space here, we have massive signs depending on what's supposed to, and there is sometimes a bit of a kind of feeling of they're all competing for attention. What's that? April says 20 miles per hour is painfully slow. Yes, it can be. But there's also one of the things that the justifications for it, and you can debate this or not, but the justification is basically that if a person is hit by a car at 30 miles an hour, they're 5 times more likely to sustain serious injury or die than if they're hit by a car at 20 miles an hour. So the 20-mile-an-hour limit is all about hitting people. Now, obviously, you shouldn't be hitting people. And also, if you're going 20 miles an hour, you've got your reaction time and the stopping time distance for the car and everything means you're also less likely to hit someone. Now, if you're sitting there getting really frustrated and gaining road rage because you've only got to go 20 miles an hour, then that's that's not going to help. But then that's your problem. You've got to learn calm. Now, there are places. Now, if we're talking about a busy road in a town centre, now this Castle Douglas isn't very big. Okay, Castle Douglas is maybe 2 miles from top to bottom, and most of that is one street. And there's bits where there's a couple of other streets, and most of the dense bit happens kind of in a stretch of about half a mile in the middle of it. The top part of here is one part of it. And then there are a couple of little housing estates where maybe you don't want to go more than 20 miles an hour. If you were having to go 20 miles an hour across the entire city, across the entire large town, then it would feel much slower, that's for sure. VG says our city limits to not more than 40. Okay. Now, I will just say this photo isn't meant to be an example of what a good photo of signs is. It isn't. This is a very quick snap just for illustrative purposes. Likewise, I walk a little bit further down the road and street corner. Now, on a street corner like this, what we have is a pile of different signs. So we've got the post office here, which also the post office contains a shop called Polka Dot. So we've got the fascia signs as such. The sign, we've also got this sign here, sorry, I'm wiggling about all over the place, which is a sign, directional sign. So you've got Lochside Theatre and Carling Walk Loch and the Town Hall go off to the left. You want the car park and tourist information centre. Off to the right, public swimming pool and library, community centre that way, health centre that way. Then we also have instructional signs. So we have things like the opening hours. that are going on. We've got where this is for posting, first class or second class. It's a place where you can get some stamps out of the wall. And then over here, there's little signs where somebody strapped something to an informational sign put onto a lamppost there to tell you about something. Up here, we've got the parking limits. So you're not allowed to stay there for more than 60 minutes or whatever. So within just this little street corner, there's a whole bunch of different signs. And you can even see the remains of some signs. We can see, like here, where signs have been stuck onto the likes of this box and then ripped off afterwards. And likewise here. There are all these little bits of sticky tape and everything else. So there's the absence of signs as well, if you want to start getting a little bit of existential, nihilistic, philosophical about it. So consequently, that this idea then of almost any direction you go in, you're coming at signs. But then what we're trying to do is so we've got a couple more comments here. So VG says, I meant kilometres. So it's 40 kilometres an hour, not 40 miles an hour. 40 kilometres an hour, which is about 30-ish or just under 30 miles an hour for the city limits in India. Although she says peak traffic times, then we tend to only move at about 8 to 10 kilometres. Yeah, I know sometimes when it gets really busy, you feel it'd be quicker to get out and walk. Lisa says, hello all from Maryland. Sorry to be late. And Marilyn joins us, says, signing in late. Saw what you did there. From sunny Colorado. Hello, everyone. Vicky says, beautiful town you live in. Yes, it is quite lovely, Castle Douglas. So what we're talking about then, this notion of signs. And as you can see, they're absolutely everywhere. Now, the key thing here, and the bit we're going to be talking about, really, or the bit that I really, really want to try and get over to you, rather, if you just take away the one thing, is to understand that when you photograph signs, like everything I ever talk about, is what's the story, what's the narrative, what's the interesting bit about the sign that you're wanting to convey. Okay, it's not product photography, it's not identification photography. Okay, this is the key point, is this isn't about, I'm taking a photograph of a sign so I can put it on eBay and sell the sign. Now, you might have that, you might want to do that, and that's okay. But if we're talking about competitions, if we're talking about challenges, if we're talking about this idea of we're taking this photo so that somebody else can take a look at it and you've conveyed something, you then have to start thinking, what is it about this sign that I'm trying to convey? Now, what you might be trying to convey is something like the actual sign itself seems interesting. So, for example, this one here, this is an old sign, quite faded, but it's attached to the Douglas Arms Hotel at the bottom of the High Street. And the Douglas Arms Hotel is an old coaching inn. So when everything was horse and carriages, generally speaking, roughly every about 9 miles or so, you would have coaching inns where the coaches pull in, the horses are either changed or get rest or whatever, and people take a break before the next stage of the journey. Now, on this sign, that's reflected partly up here. You've got this lovely bit of metalwork around it. We've also got other things going on here. We've got a thistle, sign of being Scotland, but we've also got this whole coat of arms. There's a Douglas Arms here, and there's a Douglas Arms Hotel, and there's even a Latin inscription underneath this. So this is all to do, it's part of the history of Castle Douglas itself. Castle Douglas was originally, down the bottom, was a Carling Walk village, I think. And then local landowner industrialist created Castle Douglas as a specific town. And there's a whole history behind it. And part of the coat of arms here is you've got this bloke here with a pickaxe, which is to represent like a labourer, but then you've also got this Roman soldier over here, which is to kind of represent the idea of a warrior spirit. And the warrior spirit also goes way back to the notions of the times of Robert the Bruce and a whole bunch of history here, including the Douglas coat of arms, where we have a heart, a crown, and a pair of wings on it at the top there. So in that sense, this photo here contains a huge amount of history and idea, but it's not just necessarily what it contains. It's also the fact that the paint is peeling off, that it's looking faded, that it's completely past its best. And if you happen to be in the town itself, the building itself is more than a little worse for wear. It's up for sale, hasn't been used as a proper kind of hotel for many years. So there's a whole bunch of different things. So that maybe what you're trying to communicate is something about the actual sign. Okay, a couple more people who, what have we got here? Comments. Oh, a few people saying hello to everybody. Oh, Meg's joined us as well. Oh, Roland's joined us as well. It says good afternoon. Hi, Roland. Glad you could join us. Right, okay, so there's that notion of the sign itself. Or what you might be thinking of is the sign in the context. So in a case of something like this photo then, what we have, this is Threave Castle, which you actually saw one of the signs towards, and it sits on a little island in the river, and you can only get across to it by boat. And when it's open, there's a bell there, ring for custodian, you ring the bell, the boatman has a little hut over on the island, he comes in, rows across, takes you across. So what we have here then is it's not just the sign. You can take a picture of a sign that says ring for custodian, but on its own doesn't really mean much. With the bell, it means a bit more. With the boat and the castle, it now means more again. Roland says Chester is a great place for signs. Yeah, I mean, one of the things you tend to find is pretty much every town has signs all over the place, but it does become interesting trying to find ones that are maybe unique to your town or your culture. And we're going to touch a little bit on that later. So that notion then that is the sign itself interesting, the content of it, the texture, or is the sign placed in a narrative? So it's in conjunction with something else, which is telling you more about the sign, and the sign is part of the story. Okay. So ultimately, it's all about the narrative. What is it you are wanting to convey with your picture of the sign? And to go back to this crucial point of all the photography, everything that I really come at about photography within these podcasts, which is when you take a photo, somebody is going to be looking at this photo. Now, if that somebody is only ever going to be you in the future, that's fine. It doesn't really matter. But if you are planning on anybody else looking at this photo, then you need to think about what reaction you want from them, what you want to convey to them in that photo. So once you understand that narrative, is it the colors? Is it the texture? Is it the story? Is it the fact that it's related to this thing and that thing that's also going on about it? What mood, what feel, what piece of information or emotion are you trying to convey? And once you understand that, then that affects all your other decisions on where you line up your camera, what settings you have on it, how you edit it, all these kind of things. So what is it you're trying to convey? So that's true then of signs, as it's true of every single other thing that you're photographing. So when we're talking about signs, just taking a photo of a sign, fine, we can do that. But what's the story of it? Why would anybody care? What is it you're trying to convey? So let's try, let's just give you a few more examples then of just sort of basic, the signs that are like the "this is where you are," the "here you are" signs. In fact, actually, you have that idea of "you are here." So I had to throw this one up because I always remember a cartoon which just always makes me laugh. It still makes me kind of laugh when I think about it, where you've got a person staring at a map which says "you are here," and he's got this completely freaked out, paranoid look on his face as he goes, "How do they know where we are?" I thought it was funny. Okay, I'll not give up the day job of photography and take up comedy instead. However, how do they know where we are? Right. So there's that notion. Facia signs. So shop signs, like the Mad Hatter there. Here, I thought this was a kind of an interesting one. So this is up in the Atlas Mountains in Morocco. And we just got to the top of a pass. And one of the things that noticeable all the way the drive up the pass and as you go through the Atlas Mountains is there are all these shops that have gemstones and minerals. So lumps of amethyst and all sorts of other kind of crystals. And this is the Casbah Minero, you know, with all these minerals in it. And Chez Mum, Mum's house. There's these very rough steps going up to it. A couple of benches down below where you can buy some beads and things. And it's just sort of stuck on the side of this mountain, you know, right up. This is where you want to buy your minerals, you know, your gemstones and stuff. This is the place. What's it? Gunilla says, I never know where I am in a new place, even if the map says, here you are. Or there's the notion, and you can shoot at night. So, so much, sorry, just noticed the rain has come on, so much for the sunny start that we had with, I don't know what it's like down with you, Susan, but the rain started here in Castle Douglas. So here's so we've got the Jet Garage here in Castle Douglas, which is just over the way, which has Spa in it, a Costa Express, Penny on the Move. So it's a kind of multiple store in one. And taking this then at night time. So we've got the signs, the fascias are then being lit up at night, and then you're creating a kind of a context of night. So there's a little park here. We've got a tree, got a lamppost, we've got lights, got somebody packing or getting stuff out the back of their car. But the signs here you're now seeing because they're at night time. Or another one, here you go for VG, which is the jewel in the crown, the finest Indian restaurant. Or rather, the only Indian restaurant in Castle Douglas. There used to be a second one down at the bottom of the town, but that's long since closed down, I think. So the jewel in the crown used to be a pub. Was it? Can't remember the name of it. Was it the Queen's Head, Queen's Arms? Can't remember. Anyway, that shut down a while ago and then got taken over and is now an Indian restaurant. But again, the signs as such are then lit up by them. But they also have an open sign, which is one of these, which is flashing on and off with little lights around it as well. Signs for the buffet night, telling you that on the last Sunday, I think, of every month. This was taken with a phone from a distance, so the resolution isn't there. An all-you-can-eat kind of buffet night. So you've got that notion then of so what else was I going to... Yes. Then you've got the notion of projecting signs. Okay, so projecting signs. Now, projecting signs are signs that come out from the building. So what we've been looking at now is fascia signs, the signs that are on the building above the door usually. But the projection ones are the ones that come out the side. So like the fish and chips, we've got the fish shape here. We've got the Angel Hotel kind of coming out here. We've got all sorts of, you know, the National Lottery, PayPoint stores. Is that three? Is that the pawnbrokers, or is that one the other way around? 3 bits coming up there. Anyway, so the point is that there's lots of different signs which just jut out. And the point of a jutting out sign is that it can grab your attention at a distance. As you can see, if you were looking down this street here, if you can, all the fascia signs, if they only had fascia signs, you wouldn't necessarily be able to see them. But as you're walking past, you can glance down, you can immediately see that there's a chip shop down there if you want to go. Sometimes you can get like that, you can get quite fancy. Just down the road here, Master Clockmaker Sam Caven, and here he has a jutting out sign in the shape of a grandfather clock. So some of these then can start to get quite inventive. Then there's the notion of the sandwich board. Okay, so the sandwich board is another kind of thing that juts out, and if you're so April says, love that clock sign. So in this case, we can see there's the wee tea room, then we can see there's the key cutter, then there's two more further down here, which I can't quite make out because, again, these were just taken quickly with the phone. But the point is that well, three more. There's another one down there, possibly a fourth one just hidden over there. Yep, can't see it. Anyway, but this is quite a common thing as well. So the sandwich board, the A-frame, that then just sits out onto the pavement, is easily packed up at the end of the day and put back in, unlike the kind of permanent fixture that sort of juts out of the projection sign. So these signs are kind of starting to act partly you are here, partly directional as well, so that at a distance you can see that this is the way that you want to go. John says the clock sign is great as well. Then you've got the likes of, so here, if you look here, you've got the half price sign. So one step further forward, we've got the guy who makes the signs or can make signs for you. So this key cutter, JD Keys, does key cutting, but they also are sign makers. So they can make your number plates for your cars. They can make signs for your house, whether it's numbers or names, anything like that. So a whole bunch of boards out here, which then become further signs. They are signs we can make. But as well as being an example of your wares, they're a sign that this is what he does. So that notion of then the signs here. Then we move on to the notion of, here we've got the ice cream and sweets, but we also have the giant ice cream as well. So this is known as the novelty sign. So a little bit like that clock that kind of came out, but now we're into kind of 3 dimensions here. It's not just something of a shape that's coming out. We've got a huge ice cream. This is the bit where when you're a kid and you kind of look up that and you kind of go, oh, wish I'd had an ice cream that was actually as big as that. No sense of the practicalities of actually how you'd hold it, walk around with it, or the fact that, you know, you'd never be able to, you'd be sick long before you'd even got a fraction of the way through. It doesn't matter. We all have that fantasy at some point or another. Or take it even bigger. These signs are a lot of fun, and when you can find these, I think look for ways to see if you can make an interesting photo out of it. So this is in Ayres. This is down at the seafront. As you can see, there's the Facia signs where you can get your burgers and fries and hot dogs and ice cream and candy floss and lattes and cappuccinos and everything else sitting on here. But they've also got the giant ice cream. And what we've got here, of course, is Annalise pretending like she's eating it. So these kind of giant 3-dimensional signs that at a distance, so you're going to be way down the beach, you're going to be half a mile in the other direction, and you're going to see that ice cream and you're going to know, hey, that's where we can get ice cream. Okay, so signs don't have to be writing, they can be symbolic, they can be pictures, they can be these big 3-dimensional things. But it's also trying to find a little bit of context. You can try and photograph that on its own, it's okay. For my money, it's a little bit more fun that you've got somebody there pretending like they're eating it. Whatever you say. Oh, yeah, April says, yes, that ice cream visual would entice me. And then there's the notion of like culturals. Oh, no, actually one more to show you on this, which was, again, in Morocco. We're past the Atlas Mountains now. Some of those could be okay. And here we've got the projection sign from the Hotel Meteorite, another place we can go buy lots of gemstones. But what I also love is here sitting on top of, they've got an old Citroen. And they've made a sign out of the Citroen. And the fact that you can go on these tours, desert tours, what have you, and so taking that idea of the giant ice cream. Now, I think the car it's a novelty sign, you know. Again, at a distance, you're driving along these great long straight roads out in the desert. And then suddenly there's something in the distance that's going to grab your attention. So again, yeah, these kind of novelty signs are always fun. But yes, then there's the idea of the kind of cultural signs. So, I mean, in this case, go back to kind of heraldic ideas. Now, this, so this is Castle Douglas. This is the sign for Castle Douglas. So we're back, this bit that I showed you before, where you've got the heart with the wings and the crown on top. This is all about Robert the Bruce, way back in the 14th century. and his fight against the English and Edward I. And so, big history. I'm not going to kind of give you a history lesson here, but this kind of sign then sits there at the entrance to the town, and forward being the motto that went with, and it's part of the Douglas clan that came down through it. I mean, actually, just underneath this, we then also have a bus stop sign as well, looking rather where it's messy, where the kind of green has kind of come down and built up. Yeah, in fact, over there we got the bus stop on the other side, and then a bin with what you're allowed to put in it and what you're not. So again, signs all over the place. But I think there's something to be interesting about this notion of the cultural side. This is the sign for Castle Douglas. There's a lot of towns in Scotland for certain, but also across the whole of the British Isles, where you have these kind of signs that make reference essentially to the kind of royal heritage as such, that it's all lords and earls and kings and queens and bits and pieces dotted throughout the history of this country. But if you happen to be in a different country, you're going to have a different set of signs. So I would imagine for VG and Chennai, there's going to be very different kind of cultural backgrounds. For Gunilla in Orland, it's going to be really quite different as well. So start thinking about even for Alan in Yorkshire. Yorkshire is quite a different place to to Scotland as well. So and to other parts of England. So there's if you're one of the things to investigate if you're thinking about this notion of signs, what is unique to your region or to your culture? Can you come up with something interesting in that? So if you're then putting in any images for the challenge, then if you're going for anything like that particularly, make sure you give us a little bit of history about it. Tell us what it is about that makes it distinct to your region or your culture. So that kind of idea of cultural sign as such, I think, is an interesting one to start thinking about. Other example, to give you an example here, that very same thing here, we have the crown, we have the heart, we have the forward. This is on the town hall. So this sign is like literally carved into the stone. This is on the town hall in the sandstone. You've got it cut, that same heraldic logo carved out of it. And of course, like I say, it sort of sits there on that sign as well. So you can see then that there's a lot of different ways you can kind of start looking for the signs, just even the signs, not that even that we haven't even gone on to directional signs particularly, but even just the signs of the you are here, it's this place specific, or this spot specific, this shop, this place to stand, this hotel, this town. So it's an announcement of this spot, this is the place to be. John says that Castle Douglas sign is neat as well. Right. We're roughly about halfway. So, quick little reminder that if you find these podcasts useful, interesting, entertaining even, then buymeacoffee.com/Kim Ayres is one of the ways you can do it. Another way, of course, you can do is invite your friends. And meanwhile, if you haven't done it already, do click the like button. That's always useful for the algorithms too. Quick Smug Points update. Smug Points we are at. So basically, we've only had the last week. Aydin, Gunilla, Marcy, and VG all sent in something for the critique section, for the feedback session. So they're all sitting on 30 Smug Points each. So they sent in images and they made comments. So they got 25 points for sending in the image, 5 points for leaving a comment. Now, remember, if you leave a comment here, you also get 5 points to add to your Smug Points accumulation. So if you're just lurking and haven't actually left a live comment yet, make sure you do. So everybody else is basically on 5 or 0, depending on whether they've left any comments or not. While I remember, I haven't planned anything for it, and so I never got around to do anything for it, but it is worth mentioning. Today is the 6th anniversary of these podcasts. 6 years, yay! When I started out back in 2020 at the beginning of April, we were originally told lockdown would be for 3 months. I thought I could put together, I had enough information for 3 months worth of podcasts. So I kind of drew up an outline, decided what I was going to do, and set up the podcast with this idea of 3 months in mind. And instead, here we are, episode 286, 6 years later. Most weeks I'm here, you know, maybe 4 or 5 weeks a year. There's something that gets in the way and I don't actually manage it. So yeah, one of those things I kind of forgot about until it was too late to really do anything about it. Not that I'm entirely sure what I would have done about it. Last year's 5-year celebration, I kind of made a bigger thing of it with the podcast. Turned out to be one of the least watched podcasts I've ever had. Anyway, so yes, I thought there's no point in making too much of a song and dance about it. But as you're here, as you're watching live, I think I should have a little bit of acknowledgement at some level that I've managed to keep these going for 6 years. Will we make 7? Will we make 20? Might do something bigger for the 10th anniversary if we get that far. Oh, a few people are saying congratulations. Thank you. Yes. Right. Okay. Where are we at then? So, another thing then to think about with the notion of signs is the directional aspect of it and the kind of the context and what you're trying to get. So let's go off to this one here. So if we look at this one, the point of a sign like this is, well, it's a couple of things going on. It's a footpath sign, so therefore it is directional. We can just about make out of focus moorland in the background, so we know that this is an outdoor. We also know it's outdoor because it's got lichen growing on it. But as well as the lichen, it's got a whole bunch of nails and staples, rusty staples in it as well. So this sign has obviously had a lot of notices pinned to it over the years. So, and it's a very kind of, you know, despite the fact it's outdoor, it's got this very dried out old wood feel to it. You wonder actually how much longer it will last before it starts rotting off. And see the amount of lichen over on this side of it as well. And if you know how to read these things, you know, you've ever been on one of these ranger courses, it'll probably tell you which way the prevailing winds are, or where the sun shines or rises, or, you know, all that kind of stuff. And where the lichen forms more on one side of a tree than another, also happening on a wooden post. So an interest in a sign like this is partly it's the place, but it's also that notion of the texture, that when you look at something like this, you are kind of transported to a sense of being out rambling in the moorlands, out in the wilds. It's not a city sign. It's not an urban sign. You're not in the middle of the high street when you look at this. So that sense of what are you trying to convey? You're conveying that sense of being out there. So start to think of your signs in this kind of way. Other interesting signs, again, down at the bottom of the town, interestingly, what I like about this. So Moore's is a fish and chip shop. But basically it's usually in the building, not big, quite a small building, but the building to the left, that's just out of sight here in this picture, as you look at this picture. But they had a fire recently and the shop had to close down. But they have this little shack on the right, which is made from a shipping container. And what they had been doing last summer, it was a scoop shack. So they set up an ice cream shack into a shipping container over just to the right of the building. Now what they've done is they've converted the scoop shack into a small fish and chip place, basically. So they can carry on running their chip shop and while the other one gets sorted out. So they've gone to all of that. So you've got the Scoop Shack sign on the top there, which is obviously all about the ice cream, but it's been converted. And what I love with this is serving fish and chips from container is scribbled in with a Sharpie, with a felt tip pen, or, you know, a wipeable pen. And, you know, it's a strange thing, because in that sense that so much money and design has gone into converting a shipping container into, first of all, an ice cream shack, and then into a mini fish and chip shop, and all the attention and detail that's gone into it, it sort of, I find it slightly amusing, the fact that in the end the sign that's pointing to it is just hastily scribbled out in a bit of felt tip pen. So what we're kind of doing here is there's a bit of a juxtaposition. Also notion that that sign there is for, because the thing sits back a little bit, that's there to catch anybody as they're sort of driving past or walking down, just to be reminded that it's there. So what do it's back to that idea of what are you looking for in signs? Then there's the notion of the kind of interesting juxtaposition. So here's two signs. These are at Tesco, which again, just up the road here, that way. And I quite like the fact that it's goodbye, hello. You normally think of hello, goodbye. And part of that is the layout of this, that you come up a path on your right, you come up the path, and as you're leaving, and you're just right by the side of the road, right by this. So as you're coming up here, that's the bit you would see. It says goodbye. If you're coming in this way, this is the first bit you would see, which is the bit that says hello. But when you put them both together, it's goodbye, hello. It sounds, I can hear Beatles song running in my head at the moment. But that notion just of that, what are the signs doing? So it's not about, this isn't necessarily about a single individual sign. It's now about a juxtaposition between one sign and another sign. Then there's the notion of, I showed you this sign, which I took back in the winter. And, so you've got the path. Now, I was down there yesterday. What's that? Oh yeah, Alan says, to music, you say goodbye, I said hello. That's the very one I was thinking of, yes. Now stuck in your head too. So this sign here is that I took a few months back, or back in the winter. I was back down there yesterday out on a walk, and this is the sign. So half the sign is broken off. So now what we've got is broken sign. Now, with this photo as a broken sign, you go, oh, okay, it's a broken sign. Maybe doesn't make as much interest, but if you sit it next to this one, it becomes slightly more interesting. So in a way, what you would do with this is you could maybe make something like a diptych, where you sort of put the two pictures together. Now, this was very roughly taken, so they don't line up completely. This one obviously was taken where the horizon's slightly higher. This one's taken from slightly lower down. But if I was to do it properly, I would line them up so that the pictures sort of matched exactly from the position. Different kind of weather thing going on as well. Sunny, bright, cold day, overcast day here. But the broken sign then becomes an interesting one as well, because if you take something like this, so this is Hewitt's, so just down the road here, was prominent estate agents or real estate place in Castle Douglas, attached in one of the lovely old stone buildings. But it's been empty now for several years. And you can see here that the Hewatts, H-E-W-A-T-S, the T has disappeared completely. The W and the A have dropped off, and the, dropped down, and the E is tilted. And it just has that kind of, it instantly conveys that sense of rundown, that sense of, okay, we're kind of past it, it's not. So that sort of broken sign becomes interesting. Or you take something like this is a giveaway sign, just at a junction for the car, but the normally the give and the way would be in a black, and this is a reflective surface. This this bit here is bouncing, and then the black stops that reflecting, so it stands out much more. But for some reason over the years the black has peeled off. So what we have here is a sign that isn't really, but what we're also playing with here is the notion of a certain kind of the colour scheme. We've got the white and the red against the blue sky and the little bits of clouds. So we try to kind of create something of a compositional thing going on with this. Here's another broken sign. This one's in Dumfries. I noticed this the other day when I was in. And so we've got the triangle, which is normally a warning sign, and the whole front's missing. We can see the electronic gubbins behind just lying there. I don't know quite what's happened. I don't know whether somebody's ripped it off or whether somebody's planning on fixing it but just hasn't got around to it. So you've got a broken sign here. But then you've also got to gain a certain context and what we're talking about. So again, if you look at the buildings, it's very much, this is a Scottish town. And, if we were down in Yorkshire, Alan knows full well this is not Yorkshire. John knows this is not Ohio. Janet knows this is not Mississauga. So that, going back to that notion of playing around within a cultural context as well, I think is always interesting as well. What stories are you telling? This story to anybody who lives in Dumfries is primarily, oh, there's a broken sign. To anybody who doesn't live in Scotland, actually, the background, that red sandstone, Victorian, neo-Gothic, Baroque style, which makes it look like an old castle, is part of the architectural style of the town. Now, another thing I want to talk about is the notion of when a sign makes a difference or not. So in this case, for example, what we have here is we've got a sign here. And this, again, this is in Morocco. There's the Atlas Mountains in the background. And we've got a zigzag sign coming up. We're in the car, we're driving down. We can see the ziggy-zaggy, wobbly road. So on the one hand, you could say this sign is part of the picture. But what you've also got to think here is, how much difference would it make if the sign wasn't in? If I just zoom in a little bit, just take that, move that over, just take that sign out. Is the photo significantly different? Have I lost anything from it? Or have I even potentially gained from it? Now, when it's in there, I think that it kind of adds something to the photo. I think the whiteness of the triangle with the little red and the black is kind of, we've got the white of the car with red and black. We've got the white of the mountain tops over there. So there's a little bit where it's kind of in there, it's adding a touch to it. But significantly, if I take it out, most of this picture is about that dramatic mountain snowscape in the distance with the desert kind of foreground and the wiggly road drawing us down into it. So this is a key important part that you need to understand when you're taking photos which has a title for a challenge or competition which says signs, is it's not enough just to have a sign in it. The sign has to significantly contribute to the picture. And if you want to know whether it is or not, then you take the sign out and say, is the whole feeling of the picture dramatically changed, or has it not made a lot of difference? So if we take something like this, for example, now here we are well into the desert. And if I open this in Photoshop, so here we've got, now here we're in the desert, then we've got kind of the wind whipping, the sand blowing across, everything's kind of becoming faint. And we've got a sign on the side of the road here. And it feels like we really are right out in the middle of nowhere. And we were right out in the middle of nowhere. And this little warning sign saying that the road's going to be narrowing just when you get ahead a little bit. And if we take this sign out, how does the picture feel? Now the picture kind of feels boring. I mean, maybe it wasn't the most exciting photo to begin with, but the absence of the sign actually seriously changes the feel of it. With the sign in, we've got a sense of why the photo's been taken. Without the sign, not so much. So that point then is really what I wanted to make, is that the sign itself, having a sign in a picture isn't enough in itself. You have to have a reason for it being there. I mean, I know it might sound obvious, but you'd be amazed how, well, maybe you wouldn't be that amazed. You know yourselves when you've been to things like Photocrowd or Guru Shots and what have you, and there's a topic challenge and you just go, well, yeah, how much difference is it really making to the narrative? April says, yes, one of those rare photos that the sign makes it better. Well, it should be, the sign should, being in the sign should, so if it's a signs photo, the sign needs to improve it. If it's not a signs photo, it's kind of irrelevant. So then the next thing I want to talk about is the notion of kind of hidden signs in a way. So there's lots of signs that are about that aren't necessarily for you and me. So this here is actually, this is in the UK, is a fire hydrant sign. So the point of this is for the emergency services that, or, you know, that they can come in and they know where they're going to be able to find, you know, the water supply to plug into, whether that's for the fire engines to be able to put things out or for the water board to come in and sort of stop leaks, whatever. So the fire hydrant side. So that isn't really aimed at us. So it's sitting low, leaning up against the brick wall of a house. And you could walk past it. I mean, it's bright yellow. You might notice it the first time you walk past it, and then very quickly you just filter it out. It doesn't feel like it's worth our attention because it's not aimed at us. It's not here up at head height. It's not trying to grab our attention. But for those in the know, it's there where they can find it. Now, I know I had another. Messed up slightly. So this one here is, interestingly, is another one. This is also a fire hydrant one where I don't know whether something had been taken away or whatever, but this has literally been painted on the side of a wall. So even less are you likely to notice it unless you happen to be knowing where you're looking for it. Other kind of signs to look for. This here is a milestone. It's literally a milestone. So sit at the top end of Castle Douglas, or just at the top of the street up here, is this one. Now, I've taken this photo to show you what it is. Trying to get an interesting photo of it was proving to be damn near impossible because we've got this horrible pebble dash at the back, just yucky tarmac here, and we've got wheelie bins over here. But the thing is with the milestone, so this goes back, going back to the notion of the Douglas Arms Hotel being a coaching inn, that the significance of this is that we've got a D and an arrow and 17 3/4. So the D refers to Dumfries, which is the main market town, nearly 18 miles from here. The G refers to Gatehouse. Gatehouse of Fleet is 15 miles in the other direction. And on the top, just about make out, it says London, 348 miles. And Port P in the other direction, that's Port Patrick, which is, you know, if you were heading in the other direction because then you were going to be maybe, you know, hitting the edge of southwest Scotland and then heading over to Ireland, that's 66 miles. So this then is a much older stone. This is sort of probably done, you know, 150 years ago or more. Again, pre-car. Created that, but that in itself is replacing what were again old milestones which were done literally out of stone as well. So there's a whole history, and there are various places across the whole of the UK where you have these milestones which were much more significant if you were walking or going by cart or going on horseback, so you could see how much further you were going. And certainly this notion of, you know, 348 miles to London from this point, you would have had 347, 346, all the way down to London. What have got? Alan says, imagine the image Pear Blossom Highway by David Hockney without the signs. You know, I don't know that photo. I will look it up afterwards. Sorry, that painting, I mean. I'll have to think about that one. Right, where else were we? Yes, and then there also this notion of hidden signs. Interestingly, was this one. I was chatting to my wife Maggie, and she said, have you seen that sign that's opposite the bus stop just across the road by the swimming pool? And I wasn't sure what she was talking about. So I popped out there literally this morning with my phone, and sure enough, on this building, there's this sign. And there's nothing to say what this sign is about. But it turns out that it is in fact for the Ordnance Survey. And it's it's a surveyor's benchmark. And this is a point where it's a marker for how far above sea level you are. So when the surveyors are going around making their measurements, working out what height and everything else. This is a marker. This is a literal marker into the stone, which the surveyors will know is there, that they can reference that they are this many meters or whatever above sea level, or probably yards or feet, I would imagine, because this kind of thing started coming, I think it was 1830, according to the little bit I googled, where they set out with the idea of creating kind of a national grid for height across the UK. So in the 1830s, buildings across the country started right through into the 20th century, started kind of having these marks on there. So when the surveyors are out there doing all our measurements, they've got this marker point to know exactly at what point above sea level they are. Oh, Roland says, always liked Hockney joiners. And Alan says it was one of his photo joiners. Okay, there's conversation going on between Alan and Roland. So now, the next thing then is, with this, is the notion that, well, maybe then, okay, I've taken a photo of the sign, and it's maybe an interesting sign because I can go away and look it up and find out these little bits of history. But is it an interesting photo in its own right? Yeah, not particularly. Oh, it's a bit of brickwork with a sign on it. Your eye does get drawn. I can crop it in, I can play around with it a little bit, edit it up, but I don't know that it's necessarily going to be a particularly interesting photo. So now we're on to the kind of the last section here, which is maybe get a bit arty. And are there another way you can do it? And actually, if I take this sign and I get down road level and I give it a different context, so now it's not just sitting in the brickwork, you've got the street disappearing into the distance. We've got all these kind of perspective lines coming along. And now we're seeing this into a context. In here is flat on. In here, it gives us much more of a sense of the street. So just playing around with the angle of your camera, the fact the sun's coming in, we're getting quite nice deep little shadows into this as well, is helping. And it makes it slightly more interesting to shoot this way where the sun's behind it than when you try and shoot the other way, where at that point actually with the sun there, my shadow would be falling on it. So it's not just, again, so come back to this idea, it's not just the sign, it's how are you going to make that sign interesting? With, sorry, what did Roland say? What's that, 14 millimeters? So what do you talk? Right, okay, so you're talking about, right. Well, to be honest, I used my phone. I just put my phone on wide angle and moved it around. So I wasn't using my big proper camera or anything like that. But yes, basically it's got the wide angle effect on it. Yeah, April says she likes the low shot story of the symbol. So what else are we maybe going to do? So maybe something like this, which is a bicycle route sign. And so it's a blue sign, but placing it against a blue background. Yeah, okay. It's just kind of colour thing. It's not necessarily that interesting, but you know, it's about kind of thinking about what angle I'm going, or what else do I want in the shot. Then the fact, maybe, you know, does the fact that I've got a lamp pointing at it make any difference? Not entirely sure. Or, and again, like I say, none of these are necessarily our award-winning shots. What's that? April says the colour blue contest. Well, that's a good point. Yes, if you're going for blue as a contest, this is probably quite a good one. Blue on a blue background. Nothing subtle about it, but you know, some of those online competitions will go quite well with. This one, more kind of frame within a frame. So what we've got here is the Imperial Hotel, which is just next door to me. There's another coaching, old coaching inn. You've got the entrance to the coaching in here, but you're standing, and then we've got signs through the gate. So we're now kind of framing it as such. So consider that idea as well. Remember, we have all these different tools, all the stuff that we've talked about before, all the different ways of taking shots, using backlight, using side light, using wide angles, and this frame within a frame is another way that you can start using it. This one here is a version of a nighttime. So what we have here, path signs, much like the ones I showed you earlier, different paths, slightly different. This path takes us to New Galloway. That path takes us to somewhere out of focus. And it's a night sky scene. And so we've got the sign, but there's something about this scene where we've got the silhouetted tree, we've got the mist in the field, glow from the town in the distance, the night sky, and that sense of just being you're out in the country and there's this nighttime kind of sign. So, you know, that again, if you were to remove that sign, you wouldn't necessarily have quite the same picture. This one, some of you may remember, just quickly put together for the selective colour that we talked about last year. Was it last year? I think. Can't remember, one of the earlier episodes a few months ago. And so very much a warning sign, you know, road closed, don't proceed, don't go here, using the notion of selective colour so that the red is standing out. But it's not just about that. We're using the black and white as well. We've taken the composition so that we've got those leading lines taking us down into the distance, and we darkening down the blue so the wispy clouds look that little bit more dramatic. So it's a fairly plain sign, a road closed sign, but what we're doing is we're kind of constructing a picture around it to make it look kind of more interesting. Or that same kind of idea of leading lines here. So that very same jet garage, where were we at the nighttime shot? So this shot here, this jet garage over here on the right, I'm now standing down just to the left, just at the back of that building, down by that wall. And there's that little bit of wall. And now what we're doing is we're creating all these lines going up to, you've got the big sign here that's obviously taken latest invasions, shoving petrol prices up. Now, when it was only a mere £1.37 per litre. But we've got, again, in the garage, we've got all the jet signs and everything else. But what we're doing is we're using notions of leading line. We're using notions of backlight. We're using notions of the yellow, you know, kind of not selective colour, but almost that kind of, you know, creating a particular kind of yellow-blue colour scheme where we've got the blue of the sky, the yellow of the lines and the sunlight, kind of blue tint into the car and into the shadows. So I've done subtle little colour adjustments just to kind of give us that gold, yellow, blue kind of contrast in that. So we can still it's about getting really creative with your photography and using signs within that. And then this one, some of you may remember one of the other ones where we talked about reflections. And what I did with this one is we've got a skid risk sign, and it's reflected in a puddle, and because of the notion of skid, you might kind of slip over, I decided to flip the image upside down so that actually the reflection is above and the picture is below. A little bit corny and cheesy. You could just as easily do it that way as well. So that's the original photo. But the skid risk sign, and what we're doing is we're playing around by using reflections. That's just a little bit more fun, I think, actually in reverse. What have we got here? VG says, lots of ideas flowing. We'll start taking. Hope I get lucky. Janet says, the selective colour was November last year. I ran out of time because I forgot how much OT we do in the weekend leading up to Black Friday. I can't guess. April says, yes, we have to start looking more at our local signs. Yours will prove interesting for sure. So that then kind of is your introduction to signs. And what we're doing now then is we are going to have the signs challenge. So in 2 weeks' time, which will be it's currently the 12th today, so that will be 26th. So for April the 26th, we will have the signs challenge. So by April the 24th, I would like you to send in your images before then. So photos of signs, but remember everything about what I've said here, it's not just about the sign, it's about the story of the sign. What is it that's interesting about that sign? And it might be the content of the sign itself has some particular kind of interest to it, but it might also be the context of the sign. What's that sign next to? What's that sign sitting within? Is there some kind of interesting juxtaposition? Now there's so many different sign photos that I've seen that I couldn't get versions of today. because signs isn't really my speciality, so I've been kind of just running around taking a lot of local shots and raiding a bit of the archives. But there are, the notion if you are into street photography and you've got a sign where there's an arrow, but then you happen to have somebody for some reason doing something standing next to that arrow, and they are oblivious to the fact that they have an arrow pointing at them while they are lighting up the cigarette or lifting up a baby or getting into an argument with someone. These kind of street photography things, if anybody's really into that, uses signs all the time. So juxtapositions, interesting combinations of what signs are pointing to that maybe you're not expecting them to point to. Broken signs, cultural signs. Play around, use all these other skills that you have, not just of the sign, but think about your camera angles, think about where the lighting is coming from, think about your compositional tools like use of diagonals, leading lines, echoes, color schemes, all these kind of things, and create interesting photos that are conveying something to the person who's looking at it, of which the sign is an important part. That if you remove the sign, the photo just wouldn't work as well. It would be a different kind of photo. Okay, so that's your challenge. That's what it's really all about. Now, the next week then, I'm going to be doing a feedback session. So next week, feedback, critique, your chance to send in an image. I can have a maximum of 4 before time just runs out too much. So if you're getting feedback on your photos is by far and away the best way to improve your photography. We can have all this understanding. You can look at what everybody else is doing and go, oh yeah, I like that. I could try that out. And then we have our own blind spots where we're not necessarily, we can't see things within our own photos. Getting feedback from a professional photographer who can see what's going on is so important and powerful. I learned back in my early days, I learned so much by getting proper professional feedback on my imagery. So that's why it becomes such an important thing of what I want to do with these podcasts. So first come, first serve basis. The first 4 people who send in images will get, I will look at for next week. But again, send me your images as early as possible so that I have time to look at them, work out an appropriate response. You send your images to kimayrespodcast@gmail.com. I've set this email up specifically for taking images to the challenge. So when you do the science challenge, send it to the same place. But also for any image you want to send feedback for that. It saves my own mailbox getting too clogged up. Of course, if you find this interesting, you want to support the podcast, the usual kind of buymeacoffee.com/Kim Ayres is the way you can do it. And of course, thank you for, my 6th year celebration. 6th year, that's kind of amazing to think I've been doing this for 6 years. Trying to think, is anybody around who was actually there for the first one? I know VG came in, I think, probably around about episode 3 or 4. So quite possibly VG's the one who's been around for the longest. But yeah, if anybody else wants to lay claim to that one, I don't expect anybody, especially those who've joined in the last couple of months, to go back and watch them all. To be honest, it took me the first year and a half just to kind of get into my stride. When I go back and look at these the first podcasts I did, they seem so slow and so laboured. They also tend to be about 2.5 hours long because we were in lockdown at the time, and so we're just filling time. Right, okay. So I think that pretty much draws us to a close. Okay, what else have we got here? Oh, the last couple of comments here. Right, basically, okay, Roland saying interesting challenge. Hope you enjoyed it, Roland. VG says reflection signage is beautiful. Ganilla says I tried to look on the old ones. Okay, Ganilla, what I would suggest, if you want to go back, start at the most recent and go backwards. Don't go right back to the beginning and work forwards. And what's that? So yes. Thank you then to everybody who's left comments. I look forward to seeing what you're going to come up with for the signs challenge. And of course, like I said, get your images in for the feedback challenge as well. And if you haven't done so, do click like on the podcast and invite your friends along as well. Look forward to seeing you all next week. Take care. Bye-bye.